Hey YouTube, we are back with a bots tier 9 stratagems 4-player co-op tier list. A lot has changed. We got to get through it. Some of the key differences that we're going to look at are like the 110mm rocket pods, the Gatling barrage, strafing run, and a few other turret changes as far as survivability. Looking forward to getting into it. All right, starting off with the Eagle Airstrike, I think it's very clearly an S tier stratagem pick. I can't see why you wouldn't want to take it. At times, you know, like obviously you don't need to take it, but it's just so strong. It does everything. It's your Swiss Army knife, fabricators, tanks, really good versus factory striders. Yeah, I think the only thing it's really not taken care of is your gunships, which, you know, most things don't. Next, going into the strafing run, I have enjoyed using it quite a bit. I enjoy that it's kind of like an immediate kind of stratagem to use, and it's particularly nice when, you know, you have a bot drop in the distance and they're kind of running, you know, or walking towards you menacingly. But I gotta say, I don't like how inconsistent it can feel at times. I really wish that it either had better shot grouping or it could affect a larger area while doing the same amount of shot grouping. Because it sometimes it's too narrow focused while also being not super deadly to a lot of enemies in that narrow focused enemy narrow like strafing run. I do hope that maybe it gains more explosive damage to kind of fill in the gaps or something in the future. That being said, I want to put it somewhere in the A- B+ tier. I think for now we're just going to kind of stick it in A-, but yeah, I like taking it, but it's more of a fun stratagem rather than an entirely useful one. It would be cool if it could one-shot tanks, you know, more reliably. Right now it takes about 2. It would be nice if it could take out fabricators without needing to, like, you know, properly be in the sight of it. It needs a little bit more love in my opinion. Smoke, we're going to come right in and put in like the A tier for Eagles. Having one person on your team bring it and just use it as like a way to retreat or to close off, you know, certain areas from patrols, especially with how lethal patrols have been as of late on bot missions. You know, they increase patrols in like more, I think they called it like lower density areas or like you know, places outside of the main objectives or side objectives. There's definitely more patrols showing up. Smoke, very useful in that, even in 4-player co-op, especially Eagle Smoke being quite good. Napalm is something that I'll put in like B+ territory. I like it, but fire damage in general doesn't really scale amazingly well on Devastators. It stops being useful after about the tier 1 bot level. It's nice that a tier 1 bot can get on fire and then just kind of fall over a couple seconds later, but every other Devastator, Berserker, or even higher than that are immune, or they just take, you know, so much fire damage before they fall over because of their max HP. I don't find Napalm, other than the initial explosion that comes from it, to be very useful. But at that point, you might as well use Eagle Airstrike. Cluster Bomb is still an excellent option as far as ad clear. I honestly would rather use it over Strafing Run for most things, although Strafing Run is better against armored targets. At least Eagle Cluster, I can throw it and I know that it will wipe out a lot of chaff in front of me, including Devastators, tier 1 bots, and it can take out Hulks and tanks if enough of the clusters happen to explode behind them, or at least weaken them for you. So I really like the Cluster Bomb. Yeah, going back to Strafing Run real quick, I hope that they can give it a little more love, because I think it's really close to being like a perfect position. 110mm rocket pods, I think are like a serious A+ tier stratagem now that they are more accurate, although they do a little bit less damage at times. They are so much more consistent, and I really do enjoy bringing them for like my anti-tank, my laser turrets. It's good against fabricators, really strong at times against Hulks, especially if you can get like a front or back barrage on them. Not very good if it's hitting them at the side arms and stuff like that. Similar to like the Spear, you want it to hit front faceplate or hit behind. Really strong stratagem for that. It's kind of like a fire and forget. Maybe a stun grenade helps, but not necessary all the time. 500 kg going right up in the S+ tier. Or sorry, not quite S+, but like S- tier. Just because it's kind of like your all-rounder. Although it's not as good at ad clear, it has lots of heavy armor pen. It's good against factory striders. You can destroy things that Eagle Airstrike can't, such as the ISRons, the side objectives, such as like the lab and stuff like that. Very useful, especially for the ISRon, and that's mostly why I bring it. I'm typically bringing that, or the other S tier stratagem that I can easily recommend is the precision strike. You can definitely interchange the two as far as ranking. Some people would prefer the orbital precision just because it doesn't get blocked by AAs, but personally, I don't normally see AAs blocking me from using it too often. But you know, now that they've decreased the cooldown speed of orbital precision and made it come in a lot faster, I've been taking this a lot more to deal with like all those patrols. You know, I'll throw orbital precision and then a stun grenade immediately after. Goodbye patrol. As long as I threw it correctly, that patrol is definitely dead or close to it. 500 kg also good for that, but a little less consistent than the orbital precision, but I'm sure you guys know that. Gas, I'm going to put alongside the napalm strike somewhere in that tier. I like it, but B+, gas isn't particularly useful. Same kind of thing as fire is that like they need to be standing in the gas cloud to take the damage over time, and you need to get the bots to stay there. So either you're going to spend a lot of stun grenades or you need some kind of combo stratagem, such as like EMS Mortar, to really make it useful. I think at that point, you might as well just use orbital precision because it affects a similar radius and the orbital precision just kills things. Whereas gas will just weaken a lot of the time. So maybe for gas, give it a larger radius, a little bit more lingering time. That would really help it, you know, elevate it to that A tier. Orbital 380. I like taking it. It's really good for dropping in the middle of a automaton facility, weakening up, taking a bunch of the enemies out, especially that one that's like surrounded by hulks. Absolutely love bringing it for that one. Also, bot drop comes in. I throw it right in the middle of where I think the bot drop or like the drop pods are going to happen, or where the bot drop ships are going to show up, and it'll take out a stupid amount of enemies for you. I really enjoy that. Just, you know, make sure to communicate to your team that they're not standing too close. I highly recommend trying it out, especially after all the buffs they've had over the last 2 months. It's really fun to use. Smoke, orbital smoke, definitely needs some love in the future. Hopefully it will get some. I've seen some really good videos from Riker, and he put out a great video talking about how he would love to see smoke be kind of like a curtain around you. You would throw it at your feet, and then there would be like this circular curtain of smoke around you to kind of protect you from all sides, and then you can peek out depending on where you want to go. Love that idea, especially since Eagle is a very good line of smoke. Orbital, maybe change it up, maybe make it a little bit different, and it'd be like a cool like defensive stratagem of like, I'm getting overwhelmed, but I need a second to, you know, find a new position, reposition, or just like reload, stuff like that. I think that would be a cool little change. The 120, I'm gonna put like B somewhere, probably B+, closer to B+, maybe B. I'm not a huge fan of how it feels to use in conjunction to the 380. I feel like the only times I'm ever bringing 120 is if I am doing an eradication mission and there's, you know, I'm getting pushed away from the center of the map and I throw it to the center of the map. But in like typical gameplay, I would much rather just bring the 380. They're the same cooldown. If they reduce the 120mm barrages cooldown by like 30 seconds, it starts to make it more of an interesting decision because the 120 kind of comes down faster with a higher damage per second. The 380 has much bigger hits, but over a larger radius. I want to see more of a difference, so I'm not just like always picking the 380 personally. Orbital Rail, I'll put closer to like A-. I like the idea of it for like that, like you just throw it and it just kills whatever you need it to kill or highly weakens it, such as like the Factory Strider. And I do see people use it quite a bit in random match-made tier 9s, and they love it for like dealing with that Hulk that came out of nowhere or that tank that just dropped and they like don't have enough time to deal with it. It's good for that. But as you get more experienced, I feel like you're going to move away from the Orbital Rail and you're going to move more towards like these other more immediate choices like the 110mm rocket pods or the Orbital Precision. The nice thing about it is that you don't need to aim it, which is cool, but it has such a long cooldown compared to the Orbital Precision at this point that like Orbital Rail just needs some more love for bot missions in particular. It's still performing quite well for bugs, but not for bots. It's slowly dropping down my tier list, I feel like, as I see less and less people using it, and I feel like I'm getting better and better at throwing my stratagems. So easily could see this even drop into B tier in the next little while, if they don't change it. Gatling Barrage has been an interesting one. I'm going to put it middle A. I enjoy using it for like suppressing a bot drop location, or I see a patrol in the distance, but it's definitely not as good as other things at killing that patrol. Very often I will notice not just the Hulk, I assume the Hulk's going to get out of it, but a lot of the Devastators are injured, but they're still walking out of it. There's a little bit of RNG and like involved in that, and you don't really have the same situation where you throw it at a bug breach and then bugs just keep coming out of it. The longer duration on Gatling Barrage, you kind of need more and more enemies walking into it or staying in it. And that just doesn't always happen because I find that bot drops are typically in a large radius, and the Gatling Barrage doesn't quite have that radius, or it's not as accurate as you want it to be to kill individual Devastators reliably. I just noticed too many Devastators take a hit or two, survive, and walk out. So I can't really, in good conscience, put it any higher than like middle A. I still like it, love the low cooldown, and I like throwing it at, you know, all these different like locations, especially like small fabricating stuff, but it's not like it's killing the fabricator, it's just killing everything else. Orbital EMS, I'm going to put like B+. I enjoy using it for just locking down an area if I feel like there's a lot of enemies coming from that direction. Anything that walks into it gets stunned, minus factory striders and tanks. But I find myself usually bringing stun grenades, so which is why I'm not putting it higher. Maybe allowing it to stun things that stun grenades can't, or maybe giving it a larger duration or a larger radius would be really cool. I saw someone suggest in my chat the other day that maybe it could affect maybe like a larger plume, so it could stun gunships and knock them out of the sky, maybe. I think there's a lot of things that EMS Strike could really gain at this point, and I hope they do something to make it maybe more appealing to take, because I don't see it used very often. Walking Barrage, I'm going to put it right next to 120. It's cool. It's cool. I want it more accurate. Like I was saying in my bug video, I find that I'll throw it at or in a direction of something, maybe like a Sauron tower, a tower in the distance, a sensor tower, and it'll land all before and after it, right? And it doesn't strike the target that I want it to. It's particularly useful in situations where there's a long column of enemies walking towards you. Maybe they're bot drop having a distance, and you just want things to die in that, you know, pretty accurate line. I wish it was more accurate. More of like that creeping barrage that you like heard about in like World War I, where it's very accurate and like timed detonations in the distance, rather than there's so much RNG in the walking barrage. I understand that it's set patterns, but the patterns are, you're not really doing those on the fly. You're not really picturing them all the time. Maybe you are, but I'm not. And it's hard to predict where exactly every one is going to go, especially when you're talking like 100 meters out. Can you really map that out? I don't think the average person can. Maybe you can, but I want the walking barrage to at least have a lower cooldown or more accuracy, narrower spread, and like more predictable. Airburst, really been enjoying, honestly, even more so than the Gatling barrage. It does overkill an area when I throw it, but at least in comparison to the Gatling barrage, I know whatever I throw the Airburst at, it will die. It's very good at clearing out Devastator hordes, and even at times killing Hulks and tanks, just because it's similar to the Cluster Strike, where it's the same kind of munition where it will come down and then it's an explosion, medium pen explosion. And it obviously does 3 consistent attacks, which is why it will overkill Devastators, but the extra damage is warranted for Hulks destroying the radiator in the back and tanks destroying the radiator in the back. So definitely been enjoying it. I appreciate the spammability of the Cluster Bomb a little bit more, and the larger radius of the Cluster Bomb a little more than the Airstrike. Luna, come here. Luna, come here. Yeah, we're recording the video. You missed the first half. Yeah. You want to join me? Come on, silly kitten. Okay. We got Luna here now. She says she wants to help grade the different stratagems. Oh. Next, going into the laser orbital laser. Really enjoy it. I still think that it is probably one of the best stratagems we have as far as your do the stratagem and just throw it at your enemies. It seeks out all enemies. It is very good at killing all enemies. It deals with fabricators, sensor towers, basically anything you throw at it. You just need to keep in mind that you want to throw it in opportune times. Don't just throw it for the sake of throwing it, but, you know, keep in mind that like you only have 3, right? And it has a fairly long cooldown. But I think it is worth taking in most groups. And honestly, if everybody on the team takes it, you can kind of cycle it on every bot drop that comes, making every individual bot drop so easy. And if everybody takes it, you have 12 of these. And in an average mission, yes, you get lots of bot drops, but if you use these on the actual bot drops that matter, like that are happening while you're defending an objective or moving in transition and maybe it spawns in a bad area, you can use these very repeatedly on those situations and taking out those bigger factories along the way. I can't stop myself from putting it in S tier. I know a lot of people always say in my videos that like there's such big downsides, and I agree. But remember, this is a 4-player co-op stratagem tier list, and just if people are using it and rotating it, it's incredibly powerful. It's just so useful. It's an easy, like, I don't know what to take. Let me take the laser. It's so good. It's so good. Just use it at opportune times. All right, going into these sentries, I have been very impressed with the rocket sentry. I got to say, it's probably overall the best sentry you can take outside of mortars. It is surviving more often. There was just a hotfix yesterday. And in that hotfix, they said that they added extra survivability to sentries in general, especially against like the situations where they basically got one shot by explosive effects. So the rocket sentry is surviving a lot more, and it has very good damage output at this point with good AoE. I'm noticing it also snipe because they gave it an extra 50 meters of range. It's sniping devastators that are trying to kill it. For the first time in a while, we got Luna here now. She says she wants to help grade the different stratagems. Oh. Hi. Next, going into the laser orbital laser. Really enjoy it. I still think that it is probably one of the best stratagems we have as far as your do the stratagem and just throw it at your enemies. It seeks out all enemies. It is very good at killing all enemies. It deals with fabricators, sensor towers, basically anything you throw at it. You just need to keep in mind that you want to throw it in opportune times. Don't just throw it for the sake of throwing it, but, you know, keep in mind that, like, you only have 3, right? And it has a fairly long cooldown. But I think it is worth taking in most groups. And honestly, if everybody on the team takes it, you can kind of cycle it on every bot drop that comes, making every individual bot drop so easy. And if everybody takes it, you have 12 of these. And in an average mission, yes, you get lots of bot drops, but if you use these on the actual bot drops that matter, like that are happening while you're defending an objective or moving in transition and maybe it spawns in a bad area, you can use these very repeatedly on those situations and taking out those bigger factories along the way. I can't stop myself from putting it in S tier. I know a lot of people always say in my videos that like there's such big downsides, and I agree. But remember, this is a 4-player co-op stratagem tier list, and just if people are using it and rotating it, it's incredibly powerful. It's just so useful. It's an easy, like, I don't know what to take. Let me take the laser. It's so good. It's so good. Just use it at opportune times. All right, going into these sentries, I have been very impressed with the rocket sentry. I got to say, it's probably overall the best sentry you can take outside of mortars. It is surviving more often. There was just a hotfix yesterday. And in that hotfix, they said that they added extra survivability to sentries in general, especially against like the situations where they basically got one shot by explosive effects. So the rocket sentry is surviving a lot more, and it has very good damage output at this point with good AoE. I'm noticing it also snipe because they gave it an extra 50 meters of range. It's sniping devastators that are trying to kill it. For the first time in a while, I've definitely been enjoying bringing something other than just mortars to a bots mission. Highly recommend checking it out. It's in a good spot. It's definitely in a good spot. Autocannon Sentry, I think I'm going to put right up next to it. It kind of just depends on whether or not you want higher damage per second or if you want more consistent AoE damage. The autocannon will be better at dealing with like a factory strider. It'll be better at dealing with like a Hulk. It'll be better at like a bunch of different things, but it also wastes a lot of ammo because it always fires in a 3-round burst. Whereas the rocket, it'll only fire 1 shot if it needs 1 shot. Very rarely will it fire the second shot unless it's at extreme distances and the enemy hasn't died yet. So definitely check out the autocannon. Rocket Sentry is both fantastic options for defending a location. Can't really use them always in an offensive sense because you never know when there's going to be like a rocket adversary that just hates it and it wants it dead. But in a defensive sense, you can really make them work. EMS Mortar, I think still deserves to be an A tier. I can't in good conscience put it right in S tier. It seems like in the latest patch, it's getting targeted far more by offensive forces, especially the automaton rocket devastators. It is dying a lot more than it used to. I don't know if you've noticed in the past, but you would have situations where it would be basically ignored by most units unless it maybe hit them previously, and then it would try and be focused out. But now you throw it down, enemies have the same aggro table as the ones, other sentries, but it can't really defend itself other than stun things. It's still easily one of the best, like, I don't know what to pick sentries, throw it behind a rock, and it just kind of helps you at all points of time. But, and it has an amazing ammo economy. It can basically fire for 3 minutes straight without running out of ammo, which is incredible. So for any defensive missions or like high priority targets, like you're almost always going to bring that. I'm going to put the other regular mortar right next to it. It's a fantastic option to pair with defensive, and it can be very useful in even just a normal 40-minute mission without the EMS sentry. It's just strong. Bots tend to move a lot slower. They're not going to get on top of your teammates, and I just find that team killing with mortar sentry just doesn't happen nearly as much. Obviously, the mortar is very powerful versus tanks as well and devastators. Not so much against Hawks all the time unless they're stunned, but solid option. Mines need a buff. They definitely did get a buff, a damage buff, but like I said in my Terminated stratagem video, they are in a position where they are, I think maybe the extra damage has caused them to chain explode more often. I know they chain exploded before, but if you shoot one of the mines and it's slightly too close to another, you'll see a cascading effect of mines blowing up where, you know, only one mine should have exploded, but half the minefield might disappear, and it's a 3-minute cooldown. So mines definitely still need to be more visible to teammates. They're too easily lost in deep snow. They need a shorter cooldown, and they're probably fine as far as damage, but you got to stop the chain exploding. Maybe making them spread out a little bit farther would prevent this, but yeah, definitely needs a little bit more. The machine gun sentry, I've been pleasantly surprised with the shorter cooldown. I like bringing it. The medium pen from it is quite nice. I just don't always want to bring it, whereas because like a lot of devastators will just focus it and kill it either still quite fast. And obviously it's not really going to be doing anything versus your Hulks and your tanks and your factory striders. Even though it's good against your like devastators and your tier 1 chaff, I feel like you still want to bring something that kind of can deal with everything, you know, if it runs into it. So I enjoy using it, just you got to babysit it. If a Hulk shows up, you got to protect it. Gatling sentry right next to it. I think you can interchange them depending on what kind of mission you're doing. Machine gun sentry more for like your offensive sides of the mission, where like you're attacking compounds, you throw it on an off angle or behind you and it will support you. Gatling gun is really good for all the enemies are in front of it and it can just mow down everything. You don't want it swapping massive degrees of fire, mostly because it can kill you very easily and it's wasting ammo as it turns because it doesn't stop shooting. So I enjoy it. I enjoy both of them, but like I said, only having medium pen definitely hurts them. Machine gun emplacement got a nice buff with the recent patch being able to turn 100% faster, but you're still super exposed when you're on it. I've definitely seen people slay out with the machine gun emplacement, killing Hulks and killing massive amounts of devastators if their team is mostly having the aggro. But it feels like you always need to have some kind of stratagem to help you, or teammates to really support you while you're using it. So you kind of need like EMS sentry, or you need to take something like the shield generator to make it work. But even still, taking 2 sentries for the price of 1 when you can just bring a rocket sentry and you're effectively doing exactly the same thing, but you don't have to do it and you're firing your support weapon, you're firing your primary weapon while the rocket sentry is doing all that work. So there's a kind of a sunk cost fallacy of like taking it, you need to sit on it, you're not firing anything other than that, so you need to make it very worth it, and you dying incredibly fast or feeling very vulnerable does not always feel good. But I think you can make this work, so which is why it's in B tier. Maybe even B+, depending on how good you are at using it. Tesla Tower, I think is like a solid C. Like, I don't know what else you're going to do to the Tesla Tower. It's not going in the buff section just because I feel like it is what it is. Yeah, they could give it way more health, but I feel like it's always just not going to be great versus bots unless you can find some like weird angle where they have to approach and like you put it behind a rock so they have to approach the rock and then they get zapped. But even still, it doesn't really have a fast TTK. It doesn't really deal with a lot of enemies. They obviously focus it down super fast. Yeah, you could probably just keep giving it HP, but I don't think I'm going to really put it that much higher than C tier. I just can't recommend the Tesla, and I don't really see a lot of potential for it, and which is why it's not going in the needs a buff category. Next one that I feel like easily needs a buff, needs no real introduction. We all know it's the shield generator that has literally no HP. It needs like 100% more HP, or it needs to last longer and regenerate faster. If I didn't put it in the needs a buff category, I'd probably put it like B- C+, but I'm just going to put it in the needs buff because it really needs more love for me to want to bring it reliably. And, you know, if it just got like 100% more HP overnight, I'd bring it a lot more. Low cooldown, good shield. It just dies too fast in tier 9. On the lower difficulties, you can make it work a lot better. You know, putting on an objective, putting it on extraction, it can work. Or just in a situation where you don't have any cover, throwing it down, it'll deploy quite quickly and prevent you from dying. But it doesn't prevent much damage before it's just gone, especially against like factory striders or massive amounts of HMG devastators. Like the first time I've ever used it was I think it got destroyed within like 2 or 3 seconds because 5 HMG devastators were looking at me, and I was like, oh shit, I need defense. Put it down. It was destroyed. I died a second later, and I was like, what? It just did not feel right. So hopefully they can address that in the future. Going to the shield generator, it's kind of dropping as time goes on. I feel like I don't really need it nearly as much as I once did, both because our armor is continuously getting better, but also tactically, I think people are getting more and more used to dealing with bots. I rarely, if ever, bring it. I'll take it and use it if a teammate has called it in as an extra, which is really nice, but it's definitely not as useful as it once was when we were first discovering automatons and how to play against automatons. So in general, I just see it used less and less and less. I think it has more of a purpose in bug missions because of less CC than it does in bot missions at this point. It's still very useful because it prevents you from needing to constantly inject stims for every like plink of devastator fire that comes at you, but it's something that I think even maybe is like a B+ stratagem pick at this point. It's kind of lessening its hold over the community, it seems. Like I see so few people bring it nowadays. What I do see a lot more people bringing, which I'm really happy about, is the supply pack. I think the supply pack is awesome for bug missions in particular because so many support weapons benefit from it greatly. And I find that my biggest death count is always just running out of stims. So I feel like a one-man army when I bring this and some support weapons that require a little bit more ammo, like grenade launcher or AMR or the new HMG, especially after the buff. Ballistic Shield. I've definitely been at odds with the community on this one. I think the Ballistic Shield is a B+ stratagem. I can't really in good conscience put it any higher than that. I don't enjoy how fast you get knocked on your ass by a rocket, and rockets are flying everywhere in these types of missions. And people always argue with me about it, and they say, well, you just need to find cover when there's rockets around. But then I always respond with, what's the point of bringing in the Ballistic Shield if I have cover? Yeah, I'll be able to peek out of cover a little bit more reliably without taking damage from a heavy devastator, but it won't do anything against all the rockets that are flying around, which is a big problem with me. And then the other side of it is that it gets destroyed relatively quickly if you find yourself on the bad end of a bunch of rockets or tank shells. It's nice it can prevent you from dying to a bunch of tank shells, but the fact that it breaks, like properly breaks, and you have to call in a new one, makes me not enjoy it nearly as much as the shield generator. If I'm looking for a little bit of defensiveness and I don't want to get flinched as much, I'm just going to bring the shield generator. That way I can share the shield generator with my teammates if they're not bringing a backpack themselves. And I don't have to like worry about my primary selection. I don't like that I have to bring a primary weapon that is one-handed to truly get the most out of it, right? Because yeah, you could still bring like a Dominator or Scorcher, but then you're forced to use your secondary to shoot things like heavy devastators and stuff. And we don't really have amazing sidearms at the moment. The Senator is good and the Redeemer is good, but at a certain point, they lose their effective range at like 20 meters. You're not really going to be shooting anything at more than 20 meters. So you're only going to be using it at like very choice moments where like, oh shit, there's a heavy devastator right in front of me. I got to deal with this. So I like the idea of the shield generator. Just like make it not be destroyed and maybe make it a little bit more ragdoll resistant. And I would easily put it in A tier as like an awesome pick. Jetpack I enjoy, but I don't know. It's just, I find it hard to pick over the shield pack. It's nice to jump over those like high retaining walls and stuff like that for like bot missions, but too often I've taken it and then just gotten shot out of the sky because this devastator or that devastator didn't like me that day. I do wish they would maybe reduce the cooldown on it still, or give me more propulsion, similar to the Meridian dark fluid jetpack. But I think it's middle B. It's not like a bad stratagem take, and I think with the right type of player, they can get some really good high ground or, you know, advantageous positions with it. But I think it's very niche to the certain type of player. All right, going into the Ballistic guard dog. It's a C tier stratagem, but it's going to go in needs a buff. It needs to get medium pen. Everybody tells me, oh, but it shoots at the eyes of devastators. And then I bring it to the next mission and I'm just sitting there giggling as it wastes 2 full magazines trying to kill 1 devastator. Give it medium pen. At least let it, you know, when it doesn't hit the eye, at least do some amount of damage and stagger. I just wish it would do something more than just like plink around the eye and occasionally maybe kill one Devastator per magazine. This thing has a terrible ammo economy. It is such a small magazine. And on top of that, it's just light pen. Why not just bring the Laser Rover? I don't think the Laser Rover is particularly good versus bots either. I don't recommend it, but at least it doesn't have a terrible ammo economy. It's light pen just like the other one. And I don't have to worry about it because it's actually firing a lot more often because it's not constantly running out of ammo in its magazine. Yes, it overheats and it'll sit on your backpack or on your back sometimes, but at least it's killing more often. It's more useful more often. The uptime is much better. So if they gave this thing a better magazine and they gave it more fire time with a bigger magazine and medium pen, so it's actually penetrating those Devastators more reliably, I could see it be at least a C tier, maybe B minus because it's gained that medium pen. And we all know medium pen is quite useful on bot missions. Okay, going into the mechs. I think the mechs both... the Emancipator is better. We're just going to start off with that. The dual autocannon is very useful, and it is quite good against a lot of Devastators, but you definitely have to play very defensive when using the mechs on bot missions. Laser cannon turrets are your worst enemy. Those fuckers will snipe you and one-shot you the vast majority of time on bot missions, and it is terrifying. So you kind of have to play behind your teammates, but it can rack up a ton of kills and be quite defensive when most of the fire that's coming at you is blaster fire. So I want to say it's somewhere in the B minus to B tier for bots. You won't see me taking it very often because it's just too risky, but I think with the right type of mech pilot, it can be quite useful for a team. Hanging back a little bit, sniping enemies out of dropships. It's very strong, funny enough, against factory starters as long as the main turret doesn't shoot you, because the Gatling sentries basically just ignore you and they can't even do any damage to you, which is kind of nice. So you can take out the turret fairly quickly, or at least the Gatling sentries pretty quickly. But I can't necessarily recommend it. It's nearly in C tier, but I think it's a little bit better than that, especially with the right conditions. The Patriot Exosuit, I want to put a little bit lower, so like B minus, C plus. I'll probably put it right next to the Emancipator, assuming that the person piloting the mech is fairly good at playing defensive. The Gatling gun is definitely not as strong as the autocannons, but at least it has more ammo. The rockets are a little bit hard to use with Hulks because you have to be fairly accurate to make them always worth it. So yeah, I'm not going to put it in C tier just because with the accuracy changes and they're more reliably accurate because there's more leniency when firing them, I feel like they're at least B tier. They're just hard to use. Flamethrower, C tier. I don't think there's any debate on that. I don't think it necessarily needs a buff. It's just, I don't think it's ever going to be a bot weapon unless somehow it like starts affecting Hulks from the front and it just goes through the armor like a Charger's leg, or somehow it starts doing crazy amounts of damage to, you know, this enemy or that enemy. I don't think it necessarily needs a buff because it's fantastic for his turrets. I just think it's just not a bot weapon. You're not going to bring a flamethrower to a bot mission unless you're trying to make it really hard for yourself and your teammates. Yeah, hopefully maybe it gets some range in the future. That could be an interesting buff if it just got more range, but even if it got that, I don't think it would be particularly useful regardless. I'm going to put the Railgun in B+. It's very good against Hulks, Devastators, and occasionally like tanks from all sides because it has such high pen, especially since they reduce the amount of pen tanks have from the front, but it's pretty abysmal versus gunships and factory striders. And until it gets better against those two, it will always be judged against the media plus pen weapons like the autocannon, laser cannon, HMG, and the AMR, which just kind of do what the railgun does, but better in more situations. They're more well-rounded, whereas the railgun it's great against Hulks and Devastators, but when a gunship shows up, and a lot more show up now with the modifier, you're going to be hoping that your teammate next to you kills the enemies for you, and that's not a good position to be in, especially when you bring a well-rounded support weapon like this. So fingers crossed in the future that gunships you either receive a change, so they're not as tanky versus the railgun, or the railgun gets more durable damage. I don't think there's any surprise that the autocannon goes to S+. The thing is a monster. It's so freaking good at everything, literally everything in these missions. Fabricators, Hulks, tanks. There is some confusion that I think there's like some people going around saying that it pens the front of tanks. I have not seen any evidence to support that other than the tank treads, but it always could pen the tank treads. I'm still running around to the back of the tank going for the radiator or going for the engine bay to kill my tanks. Yeah, unless someone can show me some evidence of it penning in a very particular spot, it looks like it's bouncing everywhere on the front. You need to get a flank on the rear in order for it to pen. But, you know, let me know in the comments if you've seen content that proves otherwise. I'd love to see it. Going into the spear is tracking so much better. And I've been trying to run it as much as possible in the latest bot missions that I've been doing, and I'm enjoying it. I like that it tracks a hell of a lot better. And because they reduced the armor of the front part of a tank, the spear is doing way more reliable one-shots on tanks, and it's a fantastic change overall. It's tracking onto fabricators. It's tracking onto basically anything you want it to, other than, like, you know, it's still not tracking onto the jammer itself. Just for people that are about to type in the comment section, yes, it tracks onto jammers. No, you're tracking onto the fabricator that is attached to the jammer, and not all jammers have a fabricator that is close by to it. When you blow up that fabricator, it blows up the jammer. Just a heads up on that before, you know, the comments go crazy. It's really good against those jammers that are the ones that have fabricators next to them, but that's not all of them. Just a heads up on that. So I think the spear is in a good spot. I don't know how much more it could do, other than I would love for it to more reliably one-shot Hulks from the side. That's the only time it seems like it's not. Whenever the spear is flying at them from the front, it seems to one-shot, but from the side, it will most likely just cripple an arm, and they'll still be running at you, which is sad because its ammo economy still kind of suffers, which is why it's not even higher on the list. Those are like the two downsides. The ammo economy still kind of suffers, especially with superior packaging getting broken in the latest patch. Hopefully they fix that as soon as possible. But even if that gets fixed, I think it's still like a middle A, at best maybe an A+ kind of stratagem. The Recoilless just got its reload increased. I want to put it somewhere close to the spear, or like A-. I do enjoy bringing the Recoilless from time to time. Tanks are a lot easier to kill now with AT weapons in general. As I said earlier, they lost some armor in the front, so you don't have to flank a tank to use an AT weapon. You can more reliably do more damage in the front. It's an easy 2-tap now. But I just wish it had a better ammo economy and was a little bit easier to use against more targets. I just find myself wanting to bring the Quasar in more situations because I don't have a backpack, so I can bring some other kind of backpack, or I don't have to worry about reloading it. Even though the reload's a little faster now, it's still not fast enough for me to want to bring it consistently. So yeah. EAT, I'll put right up next to it. I think EATs are a fantastic option if you're bringing some kind of support weapon, but you want to bring a little bit of extra AT. Maybe for all AT weapons, if they ever buffed how deadly shooting down a dropship was, I would definitely put it higher. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, shooting down dropships typically is not worth it in tier 9 missions. You're only really reliably killing tier 1 bots. Devastators, Hulks, and so on and so forth receive a little bit of damage from the dropship falling on them, but a lot of times they're just going to shoot out of the carcass of the dropship at you, and you can't shoot back at them, or it's going to prevent a stratagem from killing them because they're inside the carcass of that dropship, or you're blocking line of sight by shooting down that dropship, so you can't shoot at enemies. I can't recommend shooting down those dropships. Not yet, at least. Hopefully in the future, maybe they'll become better. But I do think that they are, you know, A tier, maybe B+. You know, I think you can kind of swap them back and forth depending on how you're feeling and what kind of weapon you want. You're obviously not going to bring them for Devastators, but you're more or less going to bring them for anti-tank, which they do well against. As long as you're fairly accurate against Hulks and hitting them in the eye can one-shot. And like I said earlier, it's fairly good against tanks. Arc Thrower, unfortunately, has fallen to, like, I would say like a B- territory ever since they stopped it from staggering Hulks. I do hope that in the future that it either receives some of its stagger back versus Hulks, or gets that range increase that I was talking about for Terminids. If you guys didn't watch the Terminid video yet, I said in it that I hope they either give it more fire rate, like back to the original fire rate, or give it back its original range, so I don't feel like I have to be so close to Devastators. It's definitely falling a little bit behind all the support weapons because it lost that. It's nice that it has all that heavy pen, but if the enemy is just coming so close to you so fast and you can't do anything to stop him, that's kind of unfortunate for Hulks. So here's hoping. Laser cannon, I'm a fan of it overall, but it takes a great deal of accuracy, which the sights don't really help you with, and it takes a great deal of patience to be very effective. It can be the absolute gunship killer. Like, it's probably the best overall gunship killer in the game. So if you really hate gunship patrols, highly recommend bringing this. Shoot it at an engine for like a second or two and it falls out of the sky. Really nice. But versus Devastators, you have to hit that front faceplate, and you have to hit it very accurately for about a second or so before they die. Hulks, you need to somehow hit it while they're jostling towards you, or you need to use a stun grenade to take them out. If I was going to ask for anything, I wish it got better sights or a little bit more upfront damage, so I didn't feel like I had to hit weak spots against Devastators to be good. I think it's really close to being perfect. It just needs a little bit more like upfront damage. And they have been doing that in recent patches, giving a little bit more damage here and there. So hopefully in the future they continue. Grenade launcher is an actually really fun one to bring on bot missions. I do enjoy bringing it with the supply backpack. Unfortunately, whenever a Hulk shows up, it's really annoying to take care of them. Yes, you can spam grenade launcher shots between their legs and eventually kill their radiator, but because of the delayed explosion, or arming distance, as you will, they have to be quite a bit farther than you want them to be in order to make that work. But I do enjoy using this for bot drops. I'll sit underneath the bot drop and just spam the undercarriage of all the bot ships, and I will kill a stupid amount of Devastators. And as the Devastators are falling to the ground, I'll be nailing them as they fall. It's really good for like everything below a Hulk. Really like it. But it runs out of ammo really quickly, so you have to basically take the supply backpack, or else you're just constantly scavenging for ammo or hoping that you have a teammate with a supply backpack. So I like it, but I don't love it. Give it like 2 extra magazines in reserve and it goes into A tier. It'd be really good if it had that. MG43 recently just got a new magazine in reserve. It goes now to 4. There's one, let's say, before, I've been seeing a lot of people complaining about this. Oh my god, they said they added 4 magazines for it. There is 3 in reserve, 1 on the gun. Just a heads up on that to avoid confusion. Seeing a lot of people confused about that. So it gained an extra magazine, and it got a 0.5 second faster reload speed, which is nice. But it more or less just feels like a souped up primary weapon. The fact that it can't really deal with Hulks relinquishes it down into B tier for that reason. If it ever got more pen, it would definitely go up higher. But I just don't like how you need to rely on your teammates to basically take care of Hulks reliably, because there's no really good stratagems in the game that are good at taking them out other than like stun grenading and then using like a very large like stratagem to take them out. And I don't like that necessarily, having to use a big stratagem on one individual Hulk at a time, or like having a stun grenade and awkwardly have to jump behind while they're stunned to shoot their back. It's not a great feeling to be in. It's not bad choice, which is why it's on B, like a solid B pick. But I do hope that in the future it can gain a little more prestige, or maybe do a little more durable damage, so I want to take it more often. Now, the older brother of the MG43 has now propelled itself easily up into the A tier. I really enjoy bringing the HMG into missions now. I already did bring it quite often with the supply backpack, but I honestly think it's at a point where you almost don't even need the supply backpack because they gave it a 50% damage buff. It does way more stagger. It's in a good spot. Its only downside at the moment is like it handles like a truck. And if they fix the armor that increases like the weapon handling, I think I could easily see myself bringing this a lot. In the meantime, I highly recommend bringing the recoil reduction armor, maybe with extra stun grenades armor. It's really strong with the HMG. Love using it. In the most parts, I bring it down to the lowest fire rate and kind of just tap fire it. It's really good against Devastators. It can one tap them if you're accurate enough. Just don't go first person. The sights are still fucked up on it, but it's a great choice. Highly recommend trying it out after this latest patch. Loving it. The other support weapon to go into S tier would be the AMR. The reason why I'm putting it closer to the S- is because it doesn't have as good of ammo reserves as the autocannon, and in many respects heavily benefits from the supply backpack. Really enjoy the AMR, especially with the new scope. The new scope is awesome. Another reason why it's an S tier. It's still a little misaligned. At distances over 100 meters, you'll start to notice it. It goes up and to the left a little bit. I've confirmed this multiple times, but if I didn't tell you, ignorance is bliss. Most people are using the AMR in closer distances than 100 meters, and you probably would not notice the minor misalignment. If you want to compensate for it, just aim a little bit to the right of a target, and I mean a little bit, like pixels at anything greater than like 50 meters. Just a little bit off to the right of a Devastator's head, for instance, and you'll get those one taps pretty damn reliably. Quasar is another A tier pick. I'm going to put it right next to the Spear. I enjoy using it. In limited ammo, it's just awesome to have. Auto reloading is still great. 15-second timer or cooldown on it is a bit of a struggle sometimes when you're dealing with multiple gunships, but it's still such a good option for like, hey, there's AT. I need AT in this location. I need to kill that thing and I don't want to have to worry about reloading or my ammo supply, Quasar's still really good for that. Same with tanks. Obviously, we said earlier that the front part of tanks has gone down, so it's more reliable. You can hit like the main body and get some kills with it. Yeah, highly recommend checking it out. Still a fantastic weapon even after the changes. Stalwart is going to be like a C tier pick for bots. I don't think it's much of a surprise on that one. It's just a light pen primary, essentially, with a really large magazine. You're most likely not going to be boosting the fire rate really high because you have to be extremely accurate versus Devastators to make it worth it, because literally you have the weak point, which is pennable by light, and then everything else around it is medium pen. It just suffers. It suffers in bot missions. If it was going to get a buff, it needed to be medium pen, but then you would shit on the MG43 too hard because that's a medium pen as well. It seems to be more relinquished to being like more of a terminative weapon, and then it even has an awkward spot in terminative missions because the Incineroar Breaker's so good. So hopefully in the future it can get something to make it more interesting. I'm not sure what I would give it to. Let me know down below what you would do to the Stalwart to make it more usable in bot missions. All right, and finishing up the tier list, we have the Airburst rocket launcher. This thing just needs something. I think a faster reload would definitely help. I think having an explosion radius that is maybe higher damage, so it more reliably one-shots Devastators. Maybe giving it a better opportunity to kill Hulks, because right now it's so awkward to kill a Hulk. You like basically have to shoot up between his legs and get it to impact on the ground and then blow up behind it and hope that the explosion hit enough of the radiator. I think if you just gave every explosion in the Airburst like plus 50 damage or something like that, it would immediately become like much better at dealing with patrols at a distance. But right now, I too often fired up patrol in a distance and like half the enemies just survive because of like just not dealing enough damage, or it blew up too early. It still kills teammates all the fucking time. I think a teammate brought it the other day, and it team wiped our team, I think 3 times. Now they were claiming that it was doing something weird as far as like they were putting it away, swapping to another weapon, left clicking, and it was still firing or something like that. I can't confirm. I wasn't able to replicate it, but maybe there might be some weird things going on with it. Not quite sure, but the main thing to make it better would just be increase the individual shot damage like of the cluster to make it more of a, cluster bomb in your pocket, So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Please let me know what you guys think. I always enjoy making these. Just a quick disclaimer. I'm sure that you guys would put things in different spots. Everybody has a different personal preference on how they use stuff or how much they value different things in the game. I think you could easily put anything in the tier list that I just have here, up 1 or down, or up 1 or down 1. I easily could do that. So just keep that in mind. Be kind, but do let me know what you guys think and why would you put something higher? Why would you put something lower? I love reading them. It gives me a good perspective on maybe I'm missing something with a particular stratagem and I'm not using it as proficiently as I should. Please consider dropping a like on the video and consider subscribing if you want more content like this. I will be doing a bots weapon video shortly after this, and if you're looking for terminative versions of it, I already have those posted on the channel, so do check those out. If you're interested in just having a live conversation with me, I'm live almost every day except for Mondays, early NA and EU times. So do drop by the stream and just, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the different stratagems and why you don't like something in one spot, or you really like this, or let's talk about it. So yeah, much love, YouTube. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody. Boom. We're good. Hey, Gun. Oh, man, I have a little bit of like a headache after that. I can't tell if it's like my allergies or just like I have a headache today. I can't tell. I feel like it's a pretty good tier list. I think there's a couple awkward ones where like, as I was putting it there, I don't know if I would keep it there. Like Quasar, I don't know if I would necessarily keep it right there in A tier, but I feel like it deserves to be an A tier. I still think it's a very strong AT weapon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I said it, right? I'm pretty sure I said it. I disagree with Flamethrower. Other than that, it's pretty good. Tell me why you disagree with Flamethrower. Are you actually using Flamethrower in bot missions? Unironically? Stalwart gets moved to primary, 50 mags, 2 reloads, thoughts. Hey, I think it would work. Railgun B tier for bots is crazy to me, considering you're not killing gunships with it. Sorry, crazy high or crazy low? Crazy high? No, it's very, very good against Devastators and Hulks. I don't think it's crazy high. I really don't. I think it's fair where it is. It would be catapulted into A or S tier if it could deal with factory striders and gunships more reliably. Like, you can kill a gunship with it. It's just not efficient, right? And what do you do when the gunships come? Hope your teammates save you? Well, you either use the railgun or you have other stratagem. There are other stratagems that deal with gunships, right? Like, if I'm bringing the railgun, I'm probably going to bring the rocket sentry. And I'll save the rocket sentry for when the gunships arrive. Because the rocket sentry is very good at dealing with them. Autocannon sentry as well. You can make a loadout that, you know, like the railgun is proficient at, right? It's just, you need to take a second stratagem for that situation, right? What changes should be made? More damage on the explosion, I think, would be the biggest one. It's too unreliable and kills your teammates far too often. People need to realize that guns are supposed to be balanced against both races. Flamethrower, perfect example. Buff Flamethrower for bots. Who said that they have to be balanced against both races? Why can't a gun just be bad against one race but amazing versus the other? Who said that? Right? Like, it's okay if a stratagem is not particularly good, right? No one has ever said that, right? You might want that it should be good against both, but I think it's okay that, like, a stratagem is better against one than the other. A perfect example is, like, the autocannon. The autocannon is not nearly as good versus bugs than bots. It's fucking insane versus bots, but it's, like, it's pretty good versus bugs. Aren't supposed to be balanced. Sorry, mistype. Oh, okay. That completely changes your statement. Yeah. I also think it's good that, you know, certain stratagems are better versus certain enemy types. It adds variety. Now, I would like certain stratagems to feel more proficient against certain enemy types. Like, a good example would be, like, you know, what would I say? Like, Arc Thrower, I feel like Arc Thrower has a position to be, or should be, better, right? I think it 100% should be better. But they just reduced the stagger on Hulks, and it was so sad. As someone who plays bots almost exclusively, the list is pretty much perfect. Orbital Walking Barrage could be a bit higher, though. I think I have a bias on it that I've just seen it miss far too often. Personally. I think you could get fairly good at throwing it and understand the patterns, but I'm not good enough with understanding the patterns. Just saying you have the Flamethrower in the Tesla Tower in the guard dog. I mean, come on. Yeah, but what is your Flamethrower doing? Like, what is the Flamethrower good at? Sorry, did I miss your previous message? Like, what is it good at? Am I missing something? Tell me. Every time I bring the Flamethrower, I'm just like, this is laughable. All barrage strats need accuracy buffs. I don't think the 380 really needs accuracy buff. Maybe the 120 could use more of an accuracy buff. Just like, I've used it on the command center mission. I've thrown it at the command center, or like just before, and it just straddles it. All the rounds fall ahead, and all of them fall in behind. And I'm just like, well, that's a fucking waste of 4 minutes. Flamethrower is better than the tower and guard dog you have on the list. That's all I'm saying. But what is it good at? Like, I would argue that the Tesla Tower is at least a little bit better because I could throw it down, and it should kill a couple things, especially if I hide it. You know? The laser guard dog at least is just constantly doing something for me. Although it's killing tier 1 bots, which there are more of currently in missions than ever before. It's killing those ones at least. I feel it's as useful as the Stalwart. Why does the shield fortification need a buff? It doesn't have nearly enough HP for tier 9 bots. Remember, this is a tier 9 Helldive bot tier list. I am not looking at anything else in difficulty. I'm only looking at the hardest difficulty, and it just doesn't last long enough. Yeah, the Flamethrower is great versus bugs. I fucking love it. If it had, like, a little bit less, like, set me on fire potential and maybe a little more range, it would be absolutely S tier. Or maybe it could, like, go below a Bile Titan and, like, actually kill a Bile Titan from below. The Flamethrower would be S tier immediately. I feel like if the Arc Thrower could kill or hit gunships... Dude, I didn't even think about that. That's a fantastic point. If the Arc Thrower got more range, it would actually be fairly good against gunships. Good point. Thank you for that. Stalwart really should be a primary weapon, though. If they don't touch the Incendiary Breaker and leave the Incendiary Breaker the way it is, and I don't think they should, I think it should really reduce some of its burn damage again. The Stalwart does not. If you're looking for alternative versions of it, I already have those posted on the channel, so do check those out. If you're interested in just having a live conversation with me, I'm live almost every day except for Mondays, early NA and EU times. So do drop by the stream and just, you know, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the different stratagems and why you don't like something as one spot, or you really like this, or let's talk about it. So yeah, much love, YouTube. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody. Boom.